Hey everybody, Michael Church here with Crawl Space Ninja, and welcome to another episode of the Ninja Podcast. Today I'm going to be joined by Joe, Bill, and Chuck of Hydraway, an innovative company that's changing the game when it comes to drainage solutions. We've got a jam-packed episode ahead where we'll be diving into the Hydraway is used in everything from residential yards to basements and crawl spaces, all the way to sports fields and even the iconic Field of Dreams. We'll also be talking about how Hydraway doesn't hold water, it moves it, and how that makes a huge difference compared to traditional systems. Plus, it works without aggregate, which saves time, money, and a whole lot of back-breaking labor. And hey, if you're like me and your golf skills are questionable at best, having a dry golf course might finally give us weekend hackers a fighting chance. Stick around as we explore how this affordable and easy to install system is helping prevent striping on lawns, keeping sports fields in top shape, and protecting homes across the country. Let's get started. So tell me a little bit about what you do exactly.
I work for Hydraway and I am implementing the product into the golf line. We are exploring options on how to get more golf courses to use Hydraway as a supplemental drainage system to drainage systems they already have. So who I'm trying to work with the most is the golf course superintendents, because they manage the maintenance of the golf course. So drainage is a big part of any golf course. That's like my background is I was a golf course architect for 30 years and I also was a superintendent and I also built golf courses. And in that experience, I have learned that drainage is one of the most important aspects to every aspect of golf, from design to construction to managing and maintenance. So Hydraway is a great product because it's a supplemental product to the drainage that's already in the ground from the initial construction.
Gotcha.
But it dries up areas that constantly remain trouble spots.
Well, I'm not much of a golfer, but I have played on some really nice, even private courses where they seem to have some kind of low spot where somebody like me who can't hit a golf ball and winds up tearing up more of the soil than hits the golf ball could really use a dry ground to hit off of.
Yeah. And what Hydraway does is it really, once installed, promotes a more consistent playing surface. So the areas that, fairway and all that, it's more consistent from a playability standpoint. So it really dries up some of these wet areas where water just naturally tends to want to stand.
I wanted this to be more about the relationship between Hydraway and how it's used in sports fields, as well as, if these folks who manage these multi-million-dollar sports fields are using Hydraway, then, maybe a homeowner should consider taking a look at it for their foundation. So that's kind of what I wanted to show with this video. And there's Joe, so let's let him in. Hey, Joe.
Morning, afternoon, wherever you're at.
It's afternoon for me. I'm east. So it's afternoon. Are you Central?
Yeah, he's Central Time.
Yeah, you guys in Caseyville?
Yes, sir.
Where are you at?
I'm actually in Branson, Missouri. I work remote.
Is that Central, I assume? Branson, Missouri?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. So when we get done, you guys can take a break and grab some lunch then, right? So that's the good news.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael,
Yeah.
Bill's in the room too.
Oh, hey, Bill. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
I was getting to know Chuck a little bit and telling him about my horrible golf shots and muddy golf courses. I mean, I'm bad enough whenever it's dry, so I could see how Hydraway could help somebody like me who can't actually play golf very well do better. I remember doing this one shot, and I think there was more mud on the club than the club head. It was like, where did that come from? It was a divot. It was so big I couldn't even fix it. I just snuck away.
You just kind of snuck off the course.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if he saw me do that. I just kind of left. So I think that was like my last. I had this time in my life where I wanted to learn how to play golf because it seems like everybody in the business world plays golf, right? And I was like, maybe I need to learn. And I got so mad. I was just like, I don't need this kind of frustration in my life. I just quit. I had like a really nice set of clubs. I bought like expensive set of clubs, lost a ton of money when I sold them on Facebook Marketplace, and I was done. And I've been happier ever since. So those of you that have learned how to play golf, I have a lot of respect for you. I really do. So anyway, it's not something I can do. So, all right. So let's get into it, and I'll just like pose some questions and some things that I've been curious about with Hydraway over the years. I've heard a lot of rumors, and you all are the ones to confirm these rumors, right? So the first rumor I heard is that Hydraway was used in the Field of Dreams field, which was the movie that Kevin Costner made. Is that correct? That Hydraway was used in that field?
Yeah, so Hydraway was the only flat panel drain specified and approved by Major League Baseball for that field. So it is the most televised Major League Baseball game to this date. And in that field, the Major League Baseball wanted to put Hydraway in a horizontal application on a natural field because it's a high performance sand based field. So they dug 1-inch trenches and laid Hydraway and then put the root zone sand mix and root zone on top of it to establish that root zone mix. That was a mixture that they did. And in doing so, the day before the game, they had a substantial amount of rain, 3 to 4 inches of rain the night before, and they were cutting the grass the next morning. And in doing so, in center field is the pump station for the drainage, and Hydraway removed so much water, they actually had to put in a second pump station behind the first base dugout. So it's pretty unique application. It was one of the first that they did in the high performance sand based fields where they actually, it's just a shallow trench where Hydraway lays in, and your compression strength allows for the mowing in the turf. And it establishes about a 6-inch root zone, because Major League Baseball, when I worked for the Cardinals, the outfield grass is basically a little bit taller than a putting green. So the foot traffic and the cutting, and it's cut anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day, and then it's rolled as well. It's, your infield grass is a little bit shorter than your outfield grass, but yeah, it's cut 2 to 3 times a day and rolled.
Wow. And speaking of putting greens, Chuck, you and I were talking about how, Hydraway is used in golf course application. Tell us why that's important to get this product out to other golf courses.
Sure. So in golf courses, there's subsurface drainage, which goes in below a lot of the different features. So it goes in below greens and it goes into bunkers, and that's a subsurface where it's trenched in below the engineered part of the green, right? So the green is basically an engineered feature. It has a root zone that perks the water through to the drainage system. So Hydraway is a great fit, and we're still exploring it in the use of putting greens, and we're getting more traction in that direction. But what I am trying to promote Hydraway in the golf industry more is for French drainage, where it dries up areas that typically stay wet, and it's a different application. So it's a vertical application of the pipe instead of a horizontal application. And the advantages of that going in, especially on existing courses, is there is less disturbance of the actual course on install, because you don't have to dig as wide of a trench to put it in, because the product is only 1 inch wide. So you can dig a 4 to 6 inch trench instead of a backhoe bucket width. And the other advantage is that you can backfill with a coarse sand, and you don't have to backfill necessarily with a pea gravel. With a pea gravel application, then that just creates more steps for the owner. They have to import pea gravel, they have to store pea gravel, they have to move pea gravel to the course. There's contamination because pea gravel gets into the turf, and then the mowers can't mow correctly, or it'll damage the reels on a mower. So there's a lot of disadvantages to using pea gravel, and you want to try and avoid it if you can. And Hydraway allows you to do that, because you can use a coarse sand. And if you spill coarse sand on the course, it really doesn't matter because it blends into the soil. That's the advantage of the Hydraway product.
And I would guess using the coarse sand would help to anchor the Hydraway into the ground. Is that correct? As well as give it something for the grass or whatever you're going to put on top to grow.
Yeah. So it helps create that seed bed and that basically the root zone, so that when you reestablish the turf over the top, it can grab into something a little bit easier. And it allows the water to filter through quicker to get into the pipe. But the pipe, as we know, is designed for maximum capacity. You get about 80% flow rate into the pipe just because of the way it's designed, compared to a normal 4-inch drain tile that's perforated, where, the water has to kind of go along the pipe and then seep into the pipe through the perforations. Hydraway hits the pipe immediately in, because there's that much more void space.
Yeah, let's talk about that just for a second. I've read where, say, for example, some of these slit pipes, they only have about a 6% opening. So let's speak to a 6% opening moving water versus an 80% opening, Joe, like you were talking about how the pumps couldn't even keep up. Now, that may sound like, I don't want to install that because now I got to have pumps. But no, you're moving water. That's what you want, right? So could you speak on that for me?
Yeah, so it's just a visual conception. Round pipe versus a flat panel, 4-inch, diameter versus an inch width. Hydraway is never going to hold water. It's going to remove water. And when you have a slit slot hole theory, as you do in pipes, the water has to make its way down through the 8-inch, 10-inch trench, and then get into those slit slot holes. And there's only about a 5% open area. So for that water to get in there and then move out, visually, it's hard to see, but once you've done the testing and you've looked and researched it, those slit slot holes can get clogged with sediment and everything else, where Hydraway doesn't. Hydraway is a cavity system. It's going to allow the water to drain through all sides. So it doesn't have to go around the pipe and seep in. It's going to go through our pipe to a point to where it can't drain anymore. And when it does, and it starts to come back up, it hits our system and immediately on all sides exits to your collector system. Where a round pipe it builds up and it gets the pressure, I say pressure, the water pressure that gets into the hole and then moves it out. It just has a bigger area to hold water. I don't want to hold water. I want to move water. What you get most of your problems on a natural turf field is from standing water. And that standing water is because it doesn't percolate through the pipe. Where Hydraway, we have an 18 to 28 inch per hour per square foot perk rate. And that's why we allow for the clean coarse sand in the USGA standards is 0.2 millimeter to 0.5 millimeter, which is basically a pea gravel. It allows that water to go through the system, and then our system captures that water at a point to where it can't drain anymore and moves it out.
Well, and that's a good point. I've done a lot of videos over the years, and you all did a video, and I've done a video where I showed a perforated pipe compared to the Hydraway and how much water it moves. So if any of you are watching this video, I'll put a link to one of those down below. But Chuck, what Joe said and what you hit on a minute ago, it just brought up to my mind about, not only are you having to use a bucket size width to install these perf pipes, but when you talk about a 4-inch perforated pipe, you're probably talking about another 6 inches of aggregate and filter sock and everything else around there. Not to mention the fact that somebody's going to have to drive that backhoe across that lawn, and the tracks are probably going to destroy it. And I can see Hydraway being installed with maybe a ditch witch or something small like that. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And from a golf course perspective, they spend so much time maintaining and perfecting that turf that the less damage they can do, the better off they are, right? You don't want to have to go back in and repair. The other advantage of Hydraway is just the quickness of the install. So you have less downtime, right? Because you're not having to repair as much, and you're not having to, grow in as much turf because you're not disturbing as much. The ideal install would be you take out a sod cutter, you cut a couple rows of sod out, take your ditch witch out, you cut your trench. If the material's suitable, then you just backfill with that exact same material. So you're cutting out a lot of steps on the install process that makes the whole process quicker, because you're not having to import material, you're not having to export material, you're not having to, tear up a 20-foot width area just for equipment and all that aspect. So you're really minimizing your footprint.
And some of you watching this video might be thinking, well, why is Michael Church of Crawl Space Ninja talking about golf courses and baseball fields? Well, our customers, some of their yards look like golf courses and baseball fields. They take care of them so well that they don't want to, if they have a drainage problem, they don't want to get in there with a backhoe and destroy their lawn. So this could even be a lawn application. And if one of you want to speak to that as well, that'd be great, as far as using it for a personal residence and how well it can do and where you would install it.
So in a French drain application in a residential landscape, you're going to address it in the low lying or the standing water areas. And with Hydraway, you can trench it in just a 4-inch trench, 7-8 inches deep, and you can reuse the spoils. We don't need the aggregate in a French drain application to install Hydraway. And then you can put your sod rack back over the top of it. There's not going to be any disruption to your yard or to your business or whatever the case may be. But one of the things that you brought up earlier was with aggregate. And here's a cool thing. I did some research a while back on aggregate. In the Hydraway world, in the drainage world, they use number 57, which is a 3/4 inch clean stone. And from our home right here in Caseyville, 9 hours away in Louisiana, a yard of number 57 stone in Louisiana is $110 a yard. In Illinois, is $10 a yard. So if you do the math, you're going to use, round pipe versus Hydraway, a lot of rock versus no rock. That's in the case of synthetic fields and anything, because people are trying to say that, number 57 stone is a drainage system. But yeah, it drains water. So what are you going to do after a couple of years when all those fines make their way down and now your void area is diminished? Where does the water go? It's going to go up, right? It's going to push everything up to the top. So it's just educating people just on the importance of Hydraway, how simple it is and how powerful it is when it removes water. It's an easy install. 2 guys can roll out a 150-foot roll in 15 seconds.
Wow. And there's quite a bit of weight to a bucket of 3/4 inch stone. And that was one of the things that really attracted me about Hydraway in the crawl space application is, you're looking at anywhere between 2 to 4 feet of space, and traditional pipe install required us to put that 3/4 inch stone around that pipe, and trying to maneuver in and out of a crawl space with all that stone and still not even being as effective after all that labor. It basically, from a work comp perspective, it's probably saved us, because you could throw out a shoulder, you could hurt your back or whatever, trying to crawl in and out. Where, like you said, Hydraway, you just roll the stuff out. We use a trencher, electric trencher inside the crawl space to create, it's kind of like an electric handheld ditch witch. And that way it saves us labor and time. And then we just put the Hydraway in there, and it's a great install from that perspective. So I appreciate you bringing that up too. Hey there, Michael Church, founder of Crawl Space Ninja. Do you have a crawl space or a basement, or perhaps your home is suffering from some type of indoor air quality issue? I want to encourage you to check out my book, Crawl Space Repair Myths Busted, available on Amazon. This is a great book for any homeowner that is concerned about indoor air quality, mold, moisture. Whether you're on a crawl space or a basement or a slab-built house, this is a great book, great information. I encourage you to check it out. Again, the name of the book is Crawl Space Repair Myths Busted, now available on Amazon.
So it's just that conversation that we had yesterday. And if you think about it, the perf pipe, 4-inch round pipe, has been around for many decades, right? But how many times have a natural turf installer or a synthetic turf installer, a landscaper, a golf course, they're always trying to reinvent the wheel because they're trying to find the way that it's going to work the best. Well, guess what? They still have yet to find the best way. Hydraway is simple. It's a 4-inch trench in a natural field. It's 12 to 14 inches deep. In a landscape application, 6 to 9 inches deep. It's simple. It's never going to change. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to come up with different ideas on how to move water. That's just some things that it's just an insight that people can think about. And it just goes along with how simple and easy of an installation it is.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on to that just a hair. In a golf course application, a lot of the drainage issues come from where they have put round pipe in with gravel around it. The water gets to the gravel and then it runs along the side of the pipe until it can seep in, right? What ends up happening is 50, 60 feet down the line, that water hits a resistance and it pops up, especially in a rain event, especially as the rain is happening. And that's where the damage comes from in storms. And you wash out drain lines. It's because it's getting so much water so quickly that it's not absorbing into the pipe as efficiently as it should, right? With Hydraway, you don't have that issue. And that's the advantage of the 80%, void that allows that much more water in. So you're taking care of that initial rainfall event. And then any residuals are automatically going in as well.
Very good. Well, I just want to clarify 2 terms that we use a lot that maybe someone listening may not know. Aggregate, Joe's already explained what that is. It's basically just rock or pea gravel, or even in some cases styrofoam that could be used around the pipe to give the pipe more surface area. And then spoils. That's something when I first heard, I was like, what is spoils, right? So basically spoils is the dirt that you excavated. So instead of Mr. Jones having to worry about what am I going to do with this big mound of dirt, you just put that dirt back in over the Hydraway. Is that right, Joe? Is that what you were saying?
Correct. Yeah, you fill up around the sides, put it back over the top, and then you can reuse the cut sod that you've already done. And another cool feature of Hydraway is because of the way it's installed, you don't have to worry about striping. And people are going to say, well, what is striping? So when you use a round pipe, the trench is 8 to 10 inches wide, and then however deep they put it, you have the possibility of striping. And what that does is when you lay that sod back over to the top of it, so you've got your green grass and you're going to see a yellow line. That yellow line is because it doesn't establish a healthy root zone, because it's such a big area and you have all of that aggregate around it to maintain the green grass. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you're going to have striping. So we see it a lot in natural turf fields when they do a reno. They'll do a drone footage of it and you'll see the yellow stripes. and that's where they've laid the pipe.
Which can actually happen in golf courses too. With the backfill in golf courses, after you put the pipe in, you're going to create a new root zone. What you need to do is make sure that that has organics in it as much as you can and is consistent with everything else that's around it. And that way you avoid that striping that we've been talking about.
Very good. Chuck, I heard Bill talk about, I think it was Bill or maybe Joe talk about Hydraway and how unique it is to use around a bunker. I have spent a lot of times in bunkers in my golfing career, so I'm very familiar with them. But how is Hydraway particularly used, and how do you see it being an advantage around a bunker where other installation or other pipes may not be as good?
Well, Hydraway has a couple different applications in bunkers. You can put it under the sub base of the bunker and it's going to carry more water, which is a great thing, which takes that, contamination factor out of the equation. Because sand gets contaminated not only from the lip of the bunker around it, but it also gets contaminated from the bottom up. If you have water that's drained through the sand and it's working its way down to the pipe, and the gravel that it's in starts working its way up through the sand, especially when it's completely like a rain event or completely saturated. So with Hydraway, you're eliminating that water from standing there and creating that contamination from the bottom. On the outside of the bunker, you can actually use it vertically and kind of mirror the shape of the bunker. And that takes a lot of that surface water that usually would come into the bunker from the top. It gets it into the pipe before it has a chance to do damage. So there's a couple different applications.
Very good. Joe, I assume Hydraway comes in more than just the waterproofing sizes. Are you using different sizes of Hydraway in different applications?
So we offer a 6-inch and a 12-inch product. Our 6-inch product is used in residential crawl spaces and basements, as you well know. It's also used in golf courses and fairways and aprons and approaches. It's also used in natural turf fields, and it's also used in landscape and park and recs in the French drain application. Our 12-inch product is used mainly in synthetic turf. It also can be used in a putting green. It's used in shotcrete walls, highways, a strip drain. That's what it was invented for. The other thing too is with our 12-inch product, we've seen it used in natural turf fields. And when you do that, just the depth of it is a little deeper. It's 18 to 21 inches deep. And you always want to put it above your irrigation lines. Any application where you have a natural turf field, golf courses, natural turf fields, whatever it may be, you always want to put it above the irrigation lines. And you always want to allow that, 6 to 8 inches for that healthy root zone. And people are going to ask, why do you put it above the irrigation line? If the irrigation line was to break, the water is going to go up. When it goes up, rises up, it's going to hit the Hydraway system and then move out to the collector system. So it's just small little things that you can educate people on why we do the things that we do. And again, just a simple, easy install.
Well, and you threw out a lot of potential customers that I assume Joe and Chuck and Bill, you guys are trying to talk to. So let's go over those again. You talked about municipalities. That would be someone local, city, county, state municipalities that are building roads and highways, and those would be a good referral source or someone who you'd like to talk to about that. Is that correct?
We want to get to the source of who is specifying product for projects. That would be a huge advantage if we could get into the specifier's hands. Specifically from a golf standpoint, there's the superintendent, there's the contractor, there's the architect, and those are the main people of focus. There's also the supplier or the distributor. So we're trying to work with those folks so that they can be a distributor for us so that we're in the game as well.
Well, and anybody watching, reach out to us here at Crawl Space Ninja and we'll get you in touch with these guys too. Just go to diy.crawlspaceninja.com and we can hook you guys up. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is what type of service, like you mentioned you want to talk to this group, but I assume the contractor, for example, might need a little bit of help on the install. So do you all help them with that? Do you teach them how to do that or have some kind of way to communicate with the contractor after the sale's been made?
So we basically have a specification that we will write for an architect so that they can put it in their spec manual. And those spec manuals get very detailed as far as installation processes. That's one way. But the other way is just to reach out to them individually or as a group and say, hey, this is, the product, and we can do pro day or a lunch and learn or offer any of those opportunities as well for education.
Very good. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just educating your general contractors with the specifications from the civil engineer or the landscape architect. Like Chuck said, we can do those with pro days or lunch and learns. But one of the most beneficial things is when we're at the sports builder shows, there's a handful of chapters and you can actually talk and go over the product with them. And then that leads to a lunch and learn or a pro day. I think it's very beneficial when you're in front of just the audience and you're the only product there and you can get their undivided attention and have a powerful presentation and you can get them to interact. And once they understand the labor savings and the easy install and just the knowledge of the product, it starts to turn some heads and you can quantify that from a revenue perspective.
Can you all share with us maybe some of the names of the brands that are recognizable that Hydraway has worked with in the past? I know we're talking about golf courses. We talked about the Field of Dreams field. Are there any others that you're allowed to tell us about?
Sure. We just did the Big River Runs project in Alabama. It's a very high-end sports complex for the youth. We've done the Toronto Blue Jays spring training complex. We've done the University of Missouri, along with thousands of other D1 schools. But here locally, we've got University of Missouri. We just did the Philadelphia MLS, along with the St. Louis City practice fields. And then we've also done the NFL training facilities. Some of the ones, we did the Rams here in St. Louis when they were here in St. Louis. So those are some of the higher ones that we've done, along with thousands of K through 12 schools as well.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people are like, yeah, the St. Louis Rams can afford whatever, right? So let's talk about that for just a minute. The affordability of this product is very good. Don't just look at the price of the product, look at the labor involved, installing other products that we've talked about. So even from a homeowner perspective or a small high school, middle school perspective, small municipalities, this is certainly an affordable product that they can get. Is that correct?
That is correct. And, from a residential perspective, knowing that your local high school, your local college trusted Hydraway to use it in their fields or their business, that makes them feel like, okay, well, if they trust Hydraway, then I can use that in my yard or my home or my business. So that's one of the cool things about Hydraway, that it can be used in many verticals, as we call it, but it's also knowing where it's been installed and the transfer of trust that we have with the civils or landscape architects and the general contractors, knowing where our product has been put and how it's been installed.
Great information.
I would say, Michael, that ultimately the big differentiator between Hydraway and round pipe is the inflow rate. It's not about moving water through the pipe, it's getting water into the pipe. So there's no other product on the market that does that better. And so integrated in all of these case studies and all these projects, the real differentiator is the fact that the Hydraway can receive water faster than anything on the market. That would be my one plug for the product.
Okay. And Bill, if you don't mind, real quick, there are some knockoffs out there. How does someone know, a homeowner or a golf course or whatever, how do they know they're actually getting Hydraway? What makes your product distinctive to others out there?
We have had a problem with companies knocking it off with an inferior plastic, and that inferior plastic will degrade over time, or the material is not properly attached to the plastic. And on the outside, they look very similar. So I guess it was probably 3-4 years ago, maybe, we took a step to wrap the product with a different color. So you'll actually see a white or a gray stripe. And we call that salt and pepper. So we have the capability of wrapping it. It's exactly the same fiber, exactly the same wrap that we're putting on the entire material. It's just a different color. And that has eliminated a lot of the knockoffs in the past few years. I'm sure at some point in the future, people will probably try to duplicate that because this product is a patented product. And we have that patent goes well into the 2030s. So we'll still have some people try to knock it off, but we'll do our best to stay ahead of it and change things up like what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to you all coming out with the red and black Ninja version. So that's
there you
the
go.
one I'm looking for. So
that's right.
Very good. And Bill, again, real quick, this is made in the U.S. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about that.
It is made right here in Caseyville, Illinois.
Very good. I've been to there. I've watched it being made. It's a pretty cool manufacturing process. So very good. And so we got a 6-inch or a 12-inch opportunity, depending on the application. It can either be vertical or horizontal, again, depending on the application. So it's a product that can be very diverse in how it's installed and everything else. Is that right, gentlemen?
That's correct.
All right. Well, I appreciate all three of your time today and just look forward to this video coming out so that if anybody watching this video has some questions, I'm going to put a link down below to contact us if you're interested either for your local high school or your local municipality, or who knows, maybe you manage a big facility that you need some help with drainage or something like that. So appreciate you all gentlemen doing this with me. And I'm Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja and these folks here at Hydraway. And we hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.